So, guys, usually during this time of the year, it's weird. NFL, there's nothing to talk about. So, what are we going to do today? What, like, football are we going to talk about today? Oh, yeah, the football that's actually got games going on right now. This person to my right knows more about my left, actually, on the screen. Knows more about the CFL than I do. She loves the CFL, lives, breathes it. I'm just not the newbie, but I'm the newbie to the press box. But anyway, guys, without further ado, Sarah said is with me today to talk all things Canadian football. Hey, I had to get that in
Hi,
there.
thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. So with this season, I remember the first game, like you and I met in the press box a couple weeks ago. We were talking about like surprise teams for this year, and ripped the band-aid off right away. We called BC. The game after we saw them was obviously they smoked Hamilton the night before in a shutout. They go into Winnipeg, completely destroy them, but then Monday night at BMO Field, 6 picks later, and now there's a new team on top of the power rankings, and that's our boys in double blue, the Toronto Argonauts. So how do we view everything so far? And do we think BC is that still a team to reckon with, or are they kind of like they got put in their place Monday night?
I don't think they got put in their place. I think the thing with Vernon Adams Jr. that it was the main concern overall was consistency, right? So this is
Yeah.
not so surprising when you know just what he's accomplished in the past. I still think that this is a bump in the road, so to speak. I mean, the Toronto Argonauts are really good, and I think that that's a team that I think was not getting as much credit as they deserve just starting off. I know that there was that excitement, right? They are the defending champions, so obviously they're
Yes.
going to be kind of up there. But everyone's like, like the Bombers are still the Bombers, and BC just came out of nowhere. So because they were on a bye the first week, I feel like we kind of forgot for a second that they were coming in and coming in strong. And so I'm not surprised by what happened. I mean, the 6 picks, that was a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have expected that. But I don't think that it kind of paints a picture of what we could see for BC moving forward. I think that Vernon Adams Jr. and his team are so locked in with one another that something like this would actually make them turn around and probably go ham, especially when they're playing the Montreal Alouettes, who are not a bad football team like maybe we to the degree that we thought just because of all the changes that had happened, but they're still much better, I would say, than the Alouettes, and they're playing at home as well. So I think that they will redeem themselves quickly, similar to how the Bombers did. But no, I mean both teams are great, but the Argos are definitely on top.
And that's the thing I love about the CFL too is that every year it's always like you could be bad one year and you can be great the next year. Like we've seen it with Toronto before. Where I believe it was 2021. I believe they made the East final or it was the East semifinal, but then last year they were an 11-7 team, won it all, and they were great. So and then even still how one year you can be like 6-11 or like six and I think it's like 6-12 or I forget how many, it's 18 or 19 games. I'm COVID the last couple of years kind of screwed that up and I didn't do proper research, so my apologies for that. But it's just how one year you can go from last place to first place. It's just such a whirlwind of a league. It's a very different league on its own. Obviously, look, my audience is mainly American, so not a lot of them know like, hey, about the league. But if you want to watch it, CBS Sports Network has all the games, and even with games. Yeah, that being said, look, a lot of people go to a lot of football games. You, my friend, have done something I don't think I've seen any football fan do. Folks, for those of you who don't follow Sarah, she went to 3 games in 4 nights. She started in Ottawa, she went to Montreal, and she ended her night in Toronto on Monday night. So I got to ask you, out of the three, which was the best atmosphere, which was the best stadium, and what was the best just overall game day experience?
So, first of all, it's not for the weak to do that. I don't know what made me do this. I mean, well, Hamilton is a team that I do some content for, and they're on a bye week. So I was like, okay, I'm off this week, so to speak, where I don't have to do as much work. And so I was like, what games are on? And my family lives in Montreal, so I was like, let me go to Montreal. And then I looked at the schedule. I'm like, oh, there's a game in Ottawa the day before. Let me just go to all of them. So that's kind of what happened. I recommend, but it's intense. But in terms of the game day experience, I would say the one that really like Ottawa was amazing. I mean, I'm used to Toronto.
Yeah.
That's where I started watching the CFL, and it's such a great atmosphere. Obviously, people kind of harp on the attendance, but I feel like if you're just like over it, if you just whatever, who cares, and you just go with a big group of friends, and you go to there's like a fan zone where it's like all the young people, they're having their drinks, and there's good music and whatnot. Like you're gonna have a good time. It's football. It's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful stadium, right? But the Ottawa Red Black Stadium, which is called TD Place, is so beautiful, but also the location is amazing. So it's like they have um, like right, I don't even know how to call it because it's not even a street. It's like literally when you get out of the door of the Red Blacks stadium, it's like almost like a little town, like a plaza right in front of you, and it has a bunch of different restaurants and places to go. So like it's so easy to have a fun game day there. You know, you just go make a reservation, get dinner, get drinks, and then walk 0.2 seconds and then continue your fun. But that I would definitely recommend. The fans in Ottawa are so much fun too and super dedicated. You know, they dressed up, they do the whole experience. That was cool. And Montreal was really cool too, but it was pouring rain, like to the point where you couldn't even see well. So I didn't get the full experience, I'm gonna say, with that one.
No problem, no problem. The other thing too I'll say about Montreal that, like, from what I saw from your videos that looked nice, was the new jerseys, the red jerseys. It's like Toronto's, where you see them in photos, but you see them on the field. And that's where I make my judgments. And I'm a big beer guy, and I love the how they have their own actual beer, like that. The Alouettes is a team on their own. I know, obviously, look, like Toronto's a stadium you and I are familiar with, but I feel like Ottawa's stadium, it reminds me of if you put BMO Field basically in Liberty Village. That's what it kind of seems like in a sense, if I'm not totally
Yeah, it
mistaken.
does kind of look like BMO Field. So even the colors and the way it's kind of positioned, I guess you could say.
Structure.
But it's kind of nicer in terms of like, that sounds horrible. I love BMO Field, but it has I would say the location just really makes a big difference. Even though the location of BMO Field is good, this place feels more like in the middle of an actual like downtown core. Do you know what I'm saying? Like you kind of get that vibe, which is cool. But yeah, also the Alouettes jerseys are so nice in person for sure. They look like candy apples, just really.
Oh, the Montreal can. I'm just gonna start calling them the Candy Apples. How about that? I know
Yeah,
that's like I was gonna say too. That's the one game I'm missing in Toronto though this year is when Montreal comes to town.
you can go maybe to Ottawa game. I think are they playing again? I can't remember, but yeah,
Or
no,
no,
I mean sorry,
Hamilton.
not Ottawa, but Hamilton. My brain
Yeah,
is just all over the map. But yeah.
you've had a long week. You're excused. Look, it's the middle of the day. It's the middle of the week, and we're all here to talk about football. And that's even like going back to Monday's game. One thing I want to really bring up with that game is I didn't realize this about how much trash talk was coming from BC leading up to that game. So to see everything, to talk to Robertson after the game, like they wanted the win. And I also love with Toronto how they're like, it's not, hey, this one was great. Let's focus on the next one. It's we're 1-0. I've heard that from Javon Leake, who had the punt return touchdown on Monday, said that. Dinwiddie even said that after Hamilton. He said that again after BC on Monday night. Even to Robertson said the same thing too, where it's just like, look, we're 1-0. Let's just keep going forward. And even how they're saying with the road trip, because I was talking to them about that, like, hey, these guys aren't going to be back home until the middle of August, like 5 weeks from now. How do you bring that energy with you? And Robertson said this to me. He's just like, your house is our house. So that's how they're looking at it. And I feel like, I know I'm going back to Toronto, but I feel like this is a team that for right now, I don't know who's stopping them. They look really good. Even though they will admit they make mistakes during the game, they know how to learn from them and they adapt very, very quickly. That's the one thing I've noticed with Argonaut football so far in 2023.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. They definitely take it one step at a time. I spoke to Chad a couple weeks ago, and that was one thing that he emphasized. He's like, it's not even like we're trying to win one game at a time. We're actually trying to win one play at a time. And you can kind of see that. It's like they are in the present, I would say. You know what I mean? Even if they take some hits or, are facing a team that is, so to speak, the best, it's like they're kind of locked in right then and there, and you can see it on the field. And that's, to me, like that's what will make you successful. That's what will make you consistent, right? You're not overly freaking yourself out in a bad way or a good way. You're kind of staying even keeled, and it works. But I mean, you can also, I say this all the time, but you can tell when players are friends, like for real. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's not like there's like cliques, or it's not like tension, or I'm frustrated because we're losing, or the defense isn't performing, the offense is performing, or whatever that looks like. Like it's very much a unit. And so that shows on the field. Like they kind of do things with ease. I remember, what touchdown was it? This is just like a random thought right now, but I
All
think it was
good.
a DeVaris Daniels touchdown on Monday. And he was just standing in the end zone, obviously. And the way he caught the ball was like so smooth.
Yeah.
But then I watched it a couple times, and I'm like, the way that he grabbed he wasn't, even though there was some guys around him, he wasn't stressed. It was like yeah, it was like ease. There was a very much sense of ease there. And it just told me, like, he trusts Chad, or he trusts the guys around him to do their job, but also like the fact that he's there, and he might or might not make it, like he didn't even seem stressed about that. So I think the mentality aspect for that team is huge.
Yeah, even to AJ Ouellette's touchdown towards the end of the fourth quarter, it was the same thing too. Like he literally got the toss from Chad, just found an open lane and just ran in, and then was just jumping in the end zone. I know the exact touchdown you're talking about because he literally just got in the air, catches it, brings it down, and even Robertson told me after the game Monday night, like when we were in that scrum, look, he said this about his interceptions. We're a unit. Like I have to be in the right spot at the right time, but the pass rush has to be executed at the right time. The linebackers got to be in their position to make their plays at the right time. So it's all one unit. It's all. This is a term I love using for football. It's a brotherhood. It's like they're all connected. They're all in sync, and they all know what to do to get a job done. Before we get into this week's games, which I want to talk to you about, maybe we'll even talk a little bit of the sports betting aspect of it. When it comes to the CFL, for the person that might be newer to the league out there, like someone who doesn't know much about it, or someone wants to get into it because look, they don't have their fix of what is the bigger dog in the NFL. I'm not trying to put down the CFL. I'm just saying like we all know the NFL is king when it comes to football. What makes the game so much different, and what makes the game so fun to watch? Because that's the one thing with CFL football, that it's totally different and it's not your average football.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things. I'm not going to go super, to answer your question, I'm not going to go super into the rules because
Well,
I
that's
would
fine.
recommend Googling the rules, but just because there's so many, not because I'm not trying to talk about the rules. First main thing though, 3 downs, right? Not 4 downs. That's a rule we can talk about. But the main thing that I will actually say that I've heard American fans talk to me about is that what they really love about the CFL is the community aspect. So when you're a fan coming into, especially if you're on social media, right? You go into like CFL Twitter, and you're posting your whatever, you're following other people that also love your team. The support is like immaculate. People start to know you, especially if you go to games. People will always come and say hi. I went to Ottawa. I didn't know anyone. I went by myself and I hung out with like a bunch of different fans that I knew from online. So it's very much accepting like that. And it's not okay. There's the Rough Riders fans and the Hamilton Tiger Cats fans, and maybe a little bit the Bombers fans that are, those maybe diehard fans that you can kind of compare to some NFL teams, like maybe like the Eagles or something, that or the Cowboys that have that they're known for their intensity. But I would say again, what I've heard is that even with that intensity, there's still the family and community aspect, right? It's like, yeah, obviously on game day you're going to be like, you suck, blah blah blah, but then you're hanging out before that, tailgating before that together and really bonding. And so that's what brings people back. And a lot of Americans that I have spoken to, they bring their families out because they'll do like a road trip as well. So I mean, that's one of the biggest things, right? And it's easier to follow in the sense if you're just joining in, right? 9 teams. We can list them all right now for you, top to bottom, if you want to know who's the top team, so to speak, and the bottom team. So it's very simple. But also I want to say, like, if you're into college sports, which you probably are if you watch the NFL, there's a lot of players that were, pretty well known that play in the CFL. So that's really cool too, right? So you're not jumping in blindly, so to speak. You can, you're just guys you're gonna know and follow, and it's a really good time.
I love that. I love that. Even though the Argonauts, like we talk about, you said it earlier, the attendance might not be the best numbers in the world, but you still have that atmosphere of the people who care about this team and the people like they care. Like I can't emphasize the C and care enough. You have to capitalize it because they care about the team. Hamilton too. Like I haven't been to a game at Tim Hortons Field yet. A couple weeks probably. I know from the times I've driven around to Morton's Field, there are garages and houses that are black and yellow. That's what it is. They bleed the colors. Montreal and Ottawa, even I get that same vibe too. Like even something similar as the Lumberjack. Even when I was watching a bit of the Edmonton Ottawa game, they have the guys with like the full like the zipper on the face, like makeup and stuff. The Lumberjacks sawing. The infamous watermelon heads in Saskatchewan, which I still don't get the meaning, but it's cool. And even something out to Western Canada when you have BC, Edmonton, Calgary, something like even to the Banjo Bowl. Like that's the thing about Labor Day. Like and this is something I really wish like college does it well. The NFL doesn't do it as well, but they have a full-on rivalry week. Like NFL has week 18 where like all the divisional teams play, but that is what it is. Labor Day weekend in the CFL is one of the best weekends because you have these teams where there's just so much. It's a pure rivalry. You have Edmonton and Calgary. You have the Banjo Bowl in Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. You have the Battle of the QEW in Toronto and Hamilton. It's just, for as much as it is community, you're right, but these teams all and their fans don't like each other. Like, I even saw the best sign opening night in Toronto where it was Hamilton lost 2 Grey Cups in a row. That's a special kind of suck. I'm just like, and these Toronto fans are out there flexing it, proud as can be. and I love it. And the other thing too is shout out to Montreal. It's just with them, it's a tricky situation because they do play at a university, but I feel like if you can get them their own stadium, it'd be not better in a sense. I'll let you speak on that because you've obviously been there and I haven't been to a game at Percival. But I feel like if you get someone their own home, like how it's so much different for the Argos when they were at the Dome to when they're at BMO now, because we all know now, look, Rogers Center was just way too big of a building, but then BMO Field is perfect, especially for a team like Toronto when you're right there on the lake.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I mean, in terms of Montreal, like if you if you are used to watching college games, like it feels like that in a
Hmm.
good way. Like it's still a fun time. There's so many people around. It's like people are hyped to be there. It's in an area where you can go out after. It's not like it's a good location, I'd say, if you want to just go explore Montreal before or after. So it's not. I wouldn't. It's good. It's just I get what you're saying, right? Like when you
Yeah.
have your home field, like it's a different feeling, and I think it's also obviously a different feeling for fans, but I think for players too. Like that's something that's what bothers me about it. I will say is when you go to a city that has like you're that part of that city's team, right? So you're still representing that city. Yes, maybe Montreal they don't care about the CFL as much as they would in Saskatchewan, but the fact that the facilities are not necessarily accommodating 100% to your the fact that you're a professional football player representing your city, like that's the one thing that kind of annoys me. Does that make sense?
It
Whereas
does.
they still have good facilities and they're still taken care of. It's just that's one thing that I think that the players kind of deserve more of.
Yeah, I agree with that. Where you like look, Toronto's kind of in that similar boat where it's like they practice either at Lamport or sometimes like last week's practice schedule was all screwed up just because of the smoky weather here. But how like there's the Ontario, it's like at a soccer center, Centennial Stadium, or even how like the training camps up at York University. But then you get other teams like I feel like BC's done it the best to where they've made that stadium appropriate for both MLS and the CFL in BC Place. Meanwhile, with BMO, they had to reconfigure it to fit in the Argonauts. They've done a great job at it. It's just the whole mismatch of like the completely red and white seating and even some gray, sprinkle some gray in there for Toronto FC. And then you have this team in blue coming in. So it's just kind of like, it's like one of those things there. But I feel like a stadium like Tim Hortons Field, perfectly built for the Ticats. I don't know where the Ticats practice, but I imagine they have a facility like not made for them, but like they have their own training grounds. And even Ottawa too is the same thing where the facility's made for them. And then what was I going to say? The only team where I really feel like with stadiums though, this is my brain racing at a million miles an hour, like how you're saying all these different points. It's what we do here. We have fun. Um, I feel like the only team that I can come to my mind immediately where there's nothing around the stadium to do pre and post game is Winnipeg, who I've come to learn that their stadium's outside of the downtown core of Winnipeg. Meanwhile, I feel like because that's the one thing with like even though we talk about Montreal, you're right downtown. Ottawa, you're pretty much right downtown. Toronto, it's a little bit of a hike, but you can walk to Liberty Village. Saskatchewan, I'm not too sure about. Edmonton and Calgary, I'm not too sure about. But then with Vancouver as well, BC, you're right smack downtown. So that's the only thing that sucks. I feel like with Winnipeg, when you have a team like that, but the stadium's so far outside of anywhere else. So it's kind of like you're going there for the game and that's it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've heard that as well. I've never been there, but I've heard that as well. It's tricky. I mean, the one thing that's good for the Bombers is those fans are so dedicated that it's
Yes.
like I feel like for them they'll go anywhere, which works out, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. It works out. It's just unfortunate they're not coming to Toronto this year. I saw the Bombers. I don't think
I
so.
mean, I was happy I got to see them play in Montreal, but no, I mean the schedule, CFL schedule is a strange thing, and that's another story. That's a whole other story.
The one thing I will say I like about the CFL schedule is the multiple bye weeks though. Just so they have players like get refreshed, get rejuvenated, and
a
get
longer, well,
like
it's a
focus
longer
back in.
season too, right?
Yeah.
Like they kind of have to, or else it's hard for them for sure. So yeah, you're right.
Exactly, because like that's the thing too. I got to talk to some of the guys about. Like some of them are like, "Look, we got some guys banged up," and they're like, "We like it," but then some guys are like, "Look, we want to play football." And the one thing I'll say about CFL players is, and I don't know about the NFL players, but every CFL player I've interacted with has been very nice and very approachable. Like I even got to do a one-on-one interview with backup quarterback Cameron Dukes Monday night, just because I was so enthralled about he was the one doing the QB sneaks and not Chad, and he even got the end zone, and he was very happy about it.
Yeah, no, they're like CFL players are so incredible, not just because they're incredible athletes. Oh God, oh my God, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Not
You're
just
fine.
just like throwing in a cough in there, but not because they're just incredible athletes, but they they're incredible people as a whole, who really really care about football. That's the thing. You'll I remember, I think it was MBT, McLeod Bethel Thompson, who was the starting quarterback last year with the Argos. Oh my God. Well, what
Good.
is the problem, Sarah? I'm like talking to myself, too. Oh my God. See, this is the problem when you go to 3 football games in 4 days. This is what happens. Oh God. I'm sorry. See if I can make it through this one story. But basically, he said there was a fight once on the field. Sorry.
You're excused.
Thank you. Back to the story.
Yes.
So I think it was after the Riders, the Touchdown Atlantic last year.
Yes.
So Riders Argos, they were playing in Halifax, and there was a fight that came on that happened between some of the players. It wasn't anything. I don't even remember why. I think it was just like a silly thing, but it was like they were legit heated. You know what I mean? Like they were actually trying to fight each other. And I think McLeod Bethel Thompson was asked about it. I think it was that day, and he was like, people were like, what is your take on that? Blah blah blah. Basically, he was saying like, this is, you see it a lot in the CFL, or sometimes these things come up a little more in a heated way, because these guys really, really care about foot. Like this is like their one chance, so to speak, to play professional football. And a lot of times, if they have disagreements or even mistakes happen or whatever goes down, like their whole heart and soul's into it, because they're also trying to support their families, or also, whatever that looks like, they want to win, as long as they can keep playing and or even carry on the legacy and again support their families. So there's so many aspects that make that make CFL players really cool, because they're so in love with the game, right? And they're so willing to promote it, and they're so willing to talk about their stories and to promote even their own teams. And that's, I think, something that, and they're accessible. So that's what's cool about it, is like, if you're a fan, you could easily go to a game, get your shirt signed, whatever, not even just a signature. You could have a full-blown conversation with one of these guys, talk to them about their stories and stuff like that. And so doesn't just become about, okay, this team's good, that team's good, whatever, in a player type of, in a game type of aspect. It becomes, you really love who they are as a person, and they're the best. That's my little speech, and I coughed like 100 times. I'm sorry.
You're excused. Look, like it's like you said, you were coming off a lot. For those of you who don't know, we were supposed to record yesterday on July 4th talking about Canada's game on America's holiday, but it didn't happen because Sarah needed some time to recuperate, which she still is doing. You know what? You're excused, and you're always. That's the one thing I say. It's you do what you got to do, and I'll say this right now too. Coughing will get you back on the show, so you're all good there. No problem. But going into this weekend, I'm looking at the slate right now, and there is a couple of games on here that have really caught my eye, but I want to go in alphabetical order because Thursday night we have Edmonton taking on Saskatchewan. Just want to ask you out right here. Do you think that this is a chance for Edmonton to get a win, or do you think this is a runaway for Saskatchewan?
I mean, I don't know about a runaway, but I feel like, I hate to say it, but I really think that I think the Riders are going to win this one. That's just my prediction. They've been much better this season. We kind of harped on them a lot last season. They, Cody Fajardo was there. He was struggling as a quarterback for a chunk of time there. And he wasn't happy, and he wasn't confident on the field. And there was all of that going on, especially with the O-line being what the O-line was. So it makes sense,
Yeah.
And then on top of that, Rider fans are very much intense and upset. They were very much intense and upset about the whole situation as well. And I think that kind of in people's minds of like, okay, the Riders suck. And they've had those suck moments, obviously, but I think this year we need to give them credit for what they're doing and what Trevor Harris, he got injured and he kind of came back the next game and he was doing great. So I think the Edmonton also have the opposite energy. So I think they're going to take this one.
I'm looking at this right now, and also I'll say this quickly about CFL games. I actually didn't announce this, but I'll announce this to the world right now. I was in the press box, but I was like, you know what? I think the Argos are going to win. So I sprinkled plus 145 on the Argos Monday night, and I was successful there. I will say this, but right now when I look at the betting line for this game, like I agree with you. Saskatchewan, I think they win, but I can see a world where Edmonton covers the plus 7.5, where it's a closer game than people think, but at the end of the day, Saskatchewan does just a little bit more enough to win the game as a whole.
Yeah, I think so. They're at home. And I think they haven't won at home in a time, but their stadium and everything that is intense. Whereas I feel like the Elks have experienced the opposite. Not that they haven't received the support from their fans. They've been torn down a million times. And so how do you get over that almost. I don't know if you can, right? But it's hard. It's really hard, especially when there's so many changes, right? Like you're changing your quarterback back to Taylor Cornelius again, who was the guy that was starting at the beginning, and he already had all the issues, and people were upset with that he was, kept in for a bit. Then you switch over to Ty Lux for like 0.2 seconds, in one of the games, I think it was the Argos, and he fumbled and he got released the next game. And then you, I think it was a fumble, I'm not sure, but he just messed up and got released. And then right after that, you get Davian, who does good at the end. At least, redeemed himself a little bit. He didn't win. But then the last game against the Red Blacks, wasn't so good. So then, how do you get over like a quarterback carousel like that when you're spinning around? Like, will they actually be able to get in their O-line? So it's like, does it make a difference if you change the quarterback? I don't know.
That's just it. Sometimes quarterback change can be good, but I think this is a case where it's not. I think this is just, that's the other thing too. I just don't know what Chris Jones is doing there. I feel like it's just, it's easier said than done. That's the thing with the Elks. Friday night we have Calgary and Winnipeg, and honestly, I think this is a game we see in November at some point. I think this is a good game against two very good Western teams. But I gotta go Bombers at home. I think, they're back home, especially too the fact that last time they got completely embarrassed at home. They're gonna come out looking make a statement against Calgary as well.
Yeah, definitely. I would say the Bombers have this. I mean, unfortunately, too, the Calgary Stampeders have had quite injuries that were key. You had Kadeem Carey, who was off. I think Reggie Eagleton is in, so that's good. But just on offense, they've had some issues there. And then Jake Mayer as well, has his own problems. So I don't know if they could actually the Bombers and also the Bombers defense, and it's a lot.
Exactly. And like I said too, the Bombers last week where they got their revenge against Montreal after the BC game, but I think this is going to be, they're going to be coming in with a lot of hostility just because, like we were saying earlier, you lose for the first time at home, I think in 4 or 5 years. You get embarrassed by the BC Lions, and so it's a recipe for a bad night for the Calgary Stampeders. You'll be here Saturday night, Ottawa at Hamilton. I'm going Red Blacks here. I think as soon as I saw Jeremiah starting, obviously Ottawa, I'm blanking on who the quarterback was, but he's out for the year with the ACL injury. Tyree's out for the year with the ACL injury. Masoli's going to come in. And the other thing, too, is just at Hamilton for their first few games, it's like, okay, the Winnipeg game was whatever, but then Toronto, they looked weird. A lot of the interceptions because the receivers weren't running their routes right. And then the next week, too, it was Bo's hurt, but he's going to dress, and then he's on the six-game injured list. And then Matt Schlitz, he has his moments, but at the same time, too, Montreal came to play, so they could win this. But I think this is a game that Ottawa comes in and takes, especially considering Masoli is going to have a chip on his shoulder, especially, too, considering he's returning to Hamilton to play and starting this one Saturday night.
I definitely think that that's a possibility. Jeremiah has been out for a year exactly today, which is such a crazy, story.
Full cycle thing.
Yeah, full cycle, exactly.
Full circle.
I said cycle. We're gonna be. It's all good.
Yeah.
But no, I think he's definitely going to come in strong. I also feel like, so I heard Bob Dice talking about it as well. So Bob Dice had to the Ottawa Red Blacks. He was saying that a lot of the guys on the team really love and respect Jeremiah Masoli, and they want to, impress him or be that guy for him and be ready when he needs them. So that in itself says a lot to me, where it's like you're all waiting for this moment, and it's coming off and bringing you a home win that they haven't had, and it was 640 days or 604 days, which is wild. And I got celebrating and that. And it was a beautiful moment for them. So I feel like they are going to be stronger than we think. Stronger than we think, and I say that because last year they were very bad.
I still feel like there'll be growing pains there, but I feel like this is still a team that, look, they're going to surprise some people at some points. They're going to come out there. They're going to win a couple games people don't exactly think they're going to win. They're plus 20 right now, the plus 120, on the books on FanDuel. So that's a bet I look at where I'm like, I like that a lot because it's like you said, the guys want to play for him, and when you get that, that's a winning recipe. Meanwhile, with Hamilton, I don't know what's going on there. It's a very interesting time and place. They're somewhere right now, and also too because they have this home game. I am blanking super hard on who they play next week, which I will look up right now. I do things on the fly here a lot, as you'll come to learn. Next week they are in Edmonton, which that could be a get right game. But then you got 2 weeks Friday night when you got Toronto coming into the building, and that's a game they're gonna want to get up for. But we'll see what that exactly means. So I feel like if you are Hamilton, look, you got to win your next two because I don't think they're winning on July 21st. I think Toronto will come in and take care of business that night. So for this one though, something inside me just says Ottawa's going to win. You know when you get like that feeling? That's what I got right now.
Well, it's a good thing for you because if you're betting, you need to have that gut thing, right? Put your money on it. I mean, the thing with Hamilton though is they always start off slow. They always, I think last year they were 0-3, was it? Maybe before something similar. So there's always that, like, are they going to bounce back, because of that trend that they've had. But they've had some significant obstacles, right? So when you bring in a veteran quarterback like Levi Mitchell, you're building everything around him. If you brought in a Jameer Herman, defensive player for Calgary Stampeders, he was playing with for a long time. Still the repeat, I think Butler, who's played for the BC last running back, Hamilton, he's great. He's amazing. I think he's done incredible things. But then, kind of are trying to make it work, right? With Bo and even receivers, even when it was in, it was already a little off, right? So even I would even say Shill knows the guys more, knows the team more. So there's, I would say at this point in time, putting the hope in him is not too crazy. But how you have to get past these hurdles, and those hurdles are basically just like a flow, right? Are you flowing together or are you not? And then are you gonna have the Chris Edwards is a whole other, I don't know if you know what happened, but Chris Edwards was.
Please elaborate.
Sorry?
Please elaborate.
Okay, yeah. So Chris Edwards plays for the entire cast, the player. And when they played in their home opener against Montreal, Austin Matthews, the receiver for Montreal, he did amazing. They were done the game. Montreal won, and so they go to give her a handshake, and Chris Edwards literally goes into the handshake and goes close enough to him and just pushes him. Oh, and it was horrible. And he actually had an incident in Toronto as well with some fans or something because he played in Toronto last year. But there's things like that, like discipline issues. I'm not saying that that's like a trend or a whole, painting a picture of all things to be like that. Like not at all. But those things throw everybody off. If you're already losing too, now you're thinking, okay, we look worse because of the situation. Now, how do you regain control? How do you kind of fight back? And then also, get the fans to be on your side, right? So, yeah, it's tricky, but I don't think it's doable. I just think that they will definitely be strong though because I have that feeling too that Ottawa will be strong.
That's it. It's just when the times get tough, you just can't let your emotions get the best of you. That's the one big takeaway I took from this whole Chris Edwards thing is just, look, that was an overall bad game. Like, I'll be honest with you, that night I was at the Blue Jays game, but I remember walking in to, it was actually Jack's on front after the game and just seeing the score, and I was shocked. I was like, okay, Hamilton's got some stuff to figure out, but also too for them, for folks who don't know, when a lot of teams who've won the Grey Cup have done it within the last 10 years. Hamilton hasn't won since the calendar flipped. That's the thing. 1999 was the last time they won the Grey Cup. So for them to,
they're hosting the Grey Cup.
That's the other thing too, which Sarah and I probably will be at, or hopefully. I'm not saying hopefully, putting the good vibes out in the air that you and I will both be there. But so that's the thing with them as well. I feel like it's always hanging over their shoulders is the fact that they haven't done it in so well, and people know. Look, Argonaut fans love the fact that they haven't won since 1999. But we know for them that deep down they want to get it done in the almost 25-year drought for them. So we'll see where the season goes, but I just feel like that if by the time Bo gets back, they have to be somewhere competitive because unless he comes back and they go on a run, then that's a different story. But for right now, they have to stay afloat because I feel like if they do, when he comes back, you can just kick it into high gear and not have anything to worry about. So picking up wins like against Ottawa and against Edmonton before Toronto comes into your building are key, so you can give yourself confidence going into that Argonaut game. But at the same time, too, if you split these next 2 games, like I'm saying, Ottawa's just a gut thing. That's just a gut thing. Edmonton can win. Hamilton can win for all we know. Excuse me. But these are games you have to have, especially this early into the season. Even though the CFL season is longer, every game matters.
Yeah, 100%. And people change, like fans change on a dime, right? So like when week you're the best in the league, like the BC Lions, the next, Vernon Scots, whatever. Which I don't think it's fair, but that's kind of how it goes. So you have to also be locked in.
That's 100%. You just have to lock in. And then speaking of Vernon Adams, look, he plays Montreal, which is, I looked at the time, both games were at 7 o'clock on Saturday night, which I find very interesting. But nonetheless, Vernon Adams and the BC Lions, Vernon Adams Jr. and the BC Lions, play the Montreal Alouettes. I think this is a get-right game for the BC Lions. I feel like, look, they're going to shake off what happened last week and beat them. But at the same time, too, you don't know what's going to happen. I feel like this is a game that could go either way because, look, we know what Montreal's capable of. I feel like these are both teams that can either be really good or be middle of the pack. They're like, that's the thing, because I feel like I told you this opening night, besides Ottawa and Edmonton, I think every team has a fair chance. That's why I said with the Calgary-Winnipeg game, hey, this could be a game we're seeing sometime in November for the semifinal or the West Final. But with a game like this is a game I think you're really going to find out early the true character of this team, more or less with BC, to see how well they bounce back. Because like with Montreal last week, look, it was bad weather. It was a pissed-off Winnipeg Blue Bombers team, which I feel bad for Montreal because now you're playing a pissed-off BC Lions team, and then next week you get a well-rested Toronto Argonauts team. So it's the same thing with, I feel like with Montreal and Hamilton, where you got to get the wins now so that later on in the season there is less doubt and there's more optimism in the locker room.
I agree.
Because that's it with football. It's a game of inches, and this is the one take I got really bad. I thought Monday night was going to be a defensive battle. It was defensive battle, but at the same time too, I was wrong in the sense I thought it was going to be like a 17-14 game or something like that, and then all of a sudden, boom! It was 69 total points scored for both teams. So it's the unpredictability of the CFL.
Because Argos only had one passing touchdown, and they had AJ who ran. They had a punt return touchdown. They had QB sneak.
Yes.
And then one pass. I think 4. So if you just off saying the passing, you wouldn't know that the score would be that high.
That's where, in the sense, I feel like this is so comparable to college football, just because the scores can be so super high, but then the points come from a pick six or a fumble or a punt return or like multiple rushing touchdowns. Like the first game too, Chad Kelly 3 rushing touchdowns on the night against Hamilton. Or even what's the other side I'm looking at? Oh, I'm blanking right now. It's just, or even how Toronto can go down, take a commanding lead, and then Adams goes 2 plays for 82 yards, including a 61-yard bomb to guys like Dominique Rhymes or Keon Hatcher, and all of a sudden, look, we got a football game. That's just the thing. If you want football that's there's football is theater, but the CFL is theater in the sense of you do not know what the hell is going to happen. Like one play, it could be a 2 and out. Next play, someone's going to the house. That's the reality of it.
Yeah. It's very true. It always happens. Well, always often it happens at the end of the game as well, which makes it even more intense. But no, it's that's the thing. I can understand why people who like football, right? People who like NFL, sometimes you hear them say, when talking about the CFL, they're like, oh, I only watch NFL football, I don't like the rules and stuff. And that's fine. You don't have to, right? But in my opinion, though, when I watch football, I'm like, if you like football, you like football, because CFL football is different, but there are some crazy plays. And you gotta just respect it. You gotta enjoy.
At the end of the day, we're all psychos who like watching grown men get into car crashes for 3 hours a day. So that's the thing with football, where it comes in all shapes and sizes. But for those of you out there who want to check out something different, who I like saying, who want to fix right now instead of just talking about a what if that can happen in 2 months, for the next 2 months you can watch. That's the thing too about the CFL. It's not just like it's your average guys that are playing. No, you have these are real legit athletes. That's the thing. And these are guys that, look, they're playing this is my one shot, this is my one opportunity. It's like how with the NFL every preseason, you see like those bubble guys. These are all guys who are just trying to make that next leap, or just trying to make a living. So even I want to go back to your point earlier where after every Argos game, I always see like even as I was leaving the locker room Monday night, it was still almost 11 o'clock and there's still guys out there talking to fans. There's still tons of fans like around the locker room area and stuff like that, to where it's just this genuine sense of a true family feel where these players love the fans and the fans show them that back.
Yeah, and they really will remember you. They'll catch up with you. They're funny. Like their personalities are good. So even if you want to follow them on social media and get to know them that way as well. It's like one of those things that when you're connected and when you're in there, whether it's players or other fans around you, like you kind of feel like how could I not go to the games? When I go there, it's like a little like you said, like a family reunion. And so definitely recommend the CFL. I'm obviously I would. That's what I love. But I'm to get into it, it's a breeze and it's so much fun.
That's it. And even for me too, like I started this 3 years ago. I started this podcast about 3 years ago just for fun. I literally tweeted this Monday night. I started a podcast for fun. Now I cover a CFL team. So that's where with me, like being there in the let's call it the raw flesh of it, I've gotten to have a better appreciation of the game because you're like seeing it right there. You're getting to know the players. You're getting to know the coaching staff. And to where now, like, you go on and, like, hey, you know more about it instead of it's just like, hey, you only watch a few games a year. In this case, it's like you got to keep up with trends. You got to keep up with what's going on. Even though Toronto's on a bye week this week, you still got to pay attention to what's going on around the league as they get ready for next week against Montreal. Also, folks, before we go today, I want to say something. A lot of guests, and more or less football guests, and I say football guests because the original part of this podcast and the name YWC comes from like how you say there's an online community of football fans. I come from an online community of wrestling fans, and I've gotten to know and made friends that way. But Sarah here, guys, is the first person from the football community of it that I met in person first before having on the podcast. Usually it's the opposite way around. And you know what? Because I remember we talked, and that's where I was just like, hey, let's do this sometimes. And I got to say, today was the first chat we've had, but it definitely won't be the last either in the press box or here on camera.
Yeah, it's great to meet you, and that's right. You make connections just from just having a great game, and you get to do these tips together, which is even more fun. So thank you so much for having me.
Exactly it. That's exactly it. But anyway, guys, before we go, for people out there who may not know exactly who you are, if people want to follow you out there, where can they find you on social media?
Yes, so you can follow me everywhere. It's at Sarah Anside, so SARAHTNNSCID.
Awesome, guys. That's all the links for that will be in the bio. That is Twitter. That is TikTok. Twitter, TikTok. I blanked out and I thought I said TikTok twice for a second, but I didn't. That is Twitter. That is TikTok, and that is Instagram, where we will never be rate limited. But anyway, guys, you know what? This was a great chat, Sarah. Like I said, we'll definitely have to do this again soon because, guys, look, there is football on right now. But anyway, guys, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy summer for what it is now. And if you're Canadian, enjoy the CFL slate this weekend. Or if you're American too, check it out. Because why, guys? You got that. You got baseball on. So look, if you're tired of baseball, come watch us up north. But anyway, guys, podcast is always presented by Crier Media, the people who got me into the Toronto Argonauts media field. But I'll see you guys next time here on YWC Football Talk. This has been episode number 234. Have a good night.